Hi, everyone. This is the astronaut speaking.
Yes, g'day everybody. This is the Accumulator speaking, and today we're having some newly developed upgrades for our special podcast called Starlight Network.
That's right, Accumulator. We are here at a podcast studio at the Nam Nagu Library, just next to Victoria Market, in a studio.
That's an indigenous name, I presume, Naranagu.
Nam Nagu. I think
Nam Nagu.
it translates to Melbourne knowledge.
Oh, yes.
So I think, in this library is a lot of knowledge around Nam and about it's the city library in a lot of ways about that stuff.
It's like Melbourne knowledge on the history of Melbourne.
Yeah, I think so. Probably through an indigenous lens. There's probably a lot of really amazing documentation around First Nations stuff.
That's right.
And they have really good podcast studios.
Mm-hmm.
And so you might notice, listeners, that this sounds pretty good.
Oh, yes, indeed.
So Accumulator, before we do drop into the episode, I thought maybe there were a few things that we wanted to talk to the audience about, the listeners. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the future plans you have?
Yes, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Well, first things first, I'm planning. I've been doing some research, starting from last year. I've been doing some research on how to start a podcast on my own.
Yeah.
And it's from an educational book I read. It's called Podcasting for Dummies.
Is it as helpful? Has it been helpful?
Yes. It will be even more helpful if I can get my head around to the opportunity of fully reading laptops for dummies. Because laptops are one of the main tools used for podcasting, writing scripts, and learning how to do the audio engineering works with the computer.
Yeah.
With the laptop.
It's complicated stuff.
Yeah, it's all because of Silicon Valley.
Right.
Steve Jobs, particularly, of Apple. Bill Gates of Microsoft. Is Panasonic and Nokia, Motorola, Samsung, they're part of Silicon Valley?
I'm sure they're in there.
Because I know Amazon, Virgin, and SpaceX are part of Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
They're not doing enough research for all this tech stuff. They're just in it just to, money. That's all they want.
Exactly. That's absolutely right.
It's materialism, not creativity, and there's no genius in greed. They characterize themselves personally as geniuses, but greed is not genius. Materialism, it's bad. It's horrible. It's a sin.
I absolutely agree, Accumulator.
Yes.
So on this, you've been reading about podcasts.
Yes.
What's some plans that you have for the future?
The plans I have for the future of podcasting, I'm going to use it for recording my research. The scripts I like to write for the podcast are going to be futuristic forms of recording historical research on history.
So we've got Starlight Network, which you're listening to now. Are you saying there's going to be another podcast?
Yes.
That's about history?
Yes, about in a futuristic form of comparing to how historians do it. They keep journals, and the scripts are going to be like journal entries for my contemporary research on history, and the particular period of history which I'm most obsessively fascinated with. It's my primary one. Mm-hmm. It's about the Second World War.
Yeah. The
entire war.
Yeah.
And my inspiration for it, starting from this year, is my favorite actor Tom Hanks has done a documentary about the Second World War.
Yeah. Because he's been sort of obsessed with that period of time for a long time, hasn't he? Because he was in Saving Private Ryan. He made that show
Band of Brothers,
Band
The
of Brothers
Pacific,
with Steven Spielberg.
Greyhound, also set in World War II.
So it seems like it's a very much a special interest for Tom Hanks.
Well, his interest in the Second World War was developed from learning American history at high school.
Right.
And he's the distant cousin of American President Abraham Lincoln, who I've learned recently that he's surreptitiously autistic. Did you ever know that?
Abraham Lincoln was.
Napoleon Bonaparte, he was also autistic, except he wasn't misunderstood. He was treated as a genius in military strategism.
Yeah. So are people kind of looking back through the lens of what we know now at these people and going, they probably were autistic considering the way they were in the world?
No, it's just they were just facts I learned. I'm more the way I'm recording the research is recording more the dates.
Yes. For the podcast.
Yeah, and recording what events happened in each of the dates, particularly during the Second World War. Well, I've been reading a couple of books about the Second World War. One of them's mentioning about the Australian side, about Kokoda, Japanese submarines in Sydney Harbour. Another one doesn't.
That could be an interesting avenue. Now we're just getting into workshop, listeners, but this is, I love talking. This is the best part of working with Accumulator is his ideas are incredible. It could be interesting to sort of write about the same date from different perspectives.
Yes.
Like you could cover one day from multiple sides of that experience, like a famous battle. What is it like to write it from one side of the trench to the other? You know?
Yes.
That could be really interesting.
That's right.
Yeah. So, this podcast could go forever.
Yes.
So let's just stay on track a little bit. So keep your ears out for Accumulator's second podcast. Does it have a name yet, or are you kind of
History World?
History World.
Yes, it's history and world in between the globe.
Great. I love it. So this will be a more Accumulator run. I may help. You might have guests on, or is it going to be just you?
Yes, there will be guests.
Yeah. So it's going to be fantastic with a focus on history through a contemporary lens.
Yes.
Yeah. Really exciting stuff. Okay. Should we get to the episode?
Yes. And
stay tuned afterwards for a little bit of a teaser for the next episode. We're very glad you're here. This is pretty exciting new studio. Shall we, what's this episode about, Accumulator?
Yes. This is about a man named Luis Elizondo, a Cuban-American specialist in counterintelligence, and he's done some tours in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And he was working in the Pentagon when he got assigned to a job involving flying saucers and aliens.
Shall we get to the episode and we can hear all about it?
Sure thing.
All right, everyone.
Welcome to episode 5 of our podcast, Starlight Network! One night as a very little boy, I looked at my window beside my bed, seeing something I've never seen before. A big bright light speeding through the sky like a weird satellite going out of complete control. The time I thought what I really saw was a meteor crashing to Earth. Turns out that the big bright light, as a matter of fact, a shiny glimmer ray. Starlight, not that I imagine a starlight shooting through the sky, a starlight. After my experience, I intend to tell that story to you. Starlight Network.
The following program is classified adults only. Contents and subjects contain statistical information regarding supernatural events that are scary for children and some certain individual young adults. In Starlight Network, we are going to be talking about supernatural disturbances during space exploration missions, UFO sightings, haunted houses, unexplained disappearances, ghost encounters, poltergeists, conspiracy theories in history, and espionage. It is our duty to investigate and substantiate the truth hiding in plain sight of each subject which we tend to report individually and collectively.
The story we're going to tell today on Starlight Network is about Luis Elizondo, a specialist in counterintelligence who joined the US Army in 1995 at the age of 23. He went on to serve in Iraq, Kuwait, and Afghanistan, conducting counter-narcotics, counter-terrorism, and counterintelligence operations. We don't know many details about these operations. Perhaps the information is classified. Or maybe he just doesn't like to talk about them much because of the trauma of war. Between the years 1995 and 2003, Luis Elizondo served in the United States Army, being deployed in many places including Korea, Kuwait, Iraq, and Afghanistan, specializing in military intelligence operations and counterterrorism.
Before joining the military, Luis Elizondo was trained in combat by his father, Luis Elizondo III. At the age of 8, young Luis could assemble and disassemble a gun in under 60 seconds. His father taught him how to take care of the gun and how to use it, to aim, hit targets, and wield it in the company of fellow soldiers without causing any friendly fire incidents. He kept his son active, scuba diving, surfing, flying planes, fixing cars. He clearly wanted his son to be capable and independent.
Luis Elizondo III had been part of a CIA-issued anti-Castro Cuban paramilitary unit, codenamed Brigade 2506. This brigade enacted an assassination operation against Fidel Castro during the Bay of Pigs invasion, which took place in Playa Girón in southwest Cuba between April the 15th and April the 19th, 1961. The unit bombarded 3 airfields, hoping one would be Castro's. Unfortunately, JFK, fearing military confrontation with Castro, withheld air support and the invasion sadly failed. Half the unit was executed and the other half captured and imprisoned. Luis Elizondo Sr. was captured by Castro and incarcerated in a Cuban prison before being exiled. This experience would shape Luis Elizondo Sr.'s priorities as a father, and he instilled in his son a deep sense of sacrifice and strength in the face of hardship. He was a passionate man and never stopped fighting for the country he loved. Luis Elizondo's father, Luis Elizondo Sr., was the inspiration for Al Pacino's Tony Montana in the movie Scarface, because Luis Elizondo's father was part of what's called the Mariel incident. It was going back from April to June of 1980. All the Cubans imprisoned who were anti-Castro Cuban paramilitary operatives and Cubans who were against Castro, who had the entire island under psychological communist control. They were transported on the ferry called the Mariel from Cuba and into the United States. And they were to never return to Cuba.
So was this the exile?
That's correct.
Right.
125,000 Cubans were exiled between April and June of 1980.
Wowee.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thanks, Accumulator.
Yeah, because I'm very fascinated at the moment in the history of Cuba and the period of the Spanish Empire. That's something else I'm going to record in History World.
Great.
I've been reading about the Spanish Empire, the British Empire, the history of Scotland, the history of Vietnam, and about the Roman Empire.
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
What's your favourite period in history, Astronaut.
Whoa. My favorite period in history.
Yes.
I am very fascinated with the time around the Black Plague.
The Black Death.
The Black Death, the kind of the sort of strange destruction of Europe, and
Yes.
the levels of mysticism that arose through those dark times, and the kind of loss of history as, you know, millions of people succumbed to this virus. So I think that there's something very interesting about that period of time that I really like. I also am very fascinated by the 80s.
Would that be SDI, the 1980s? Or what other things do you like about the 80s?
I just think it's a very interesting time culturally. I think as we sort of... history is cyclical, and we're in the 90s now, but I think the 80s, the way, especially in terms of the Western representation of kind of capitalism and how the world works, I think the 80s is a really fascinating time for the kind of the free market and how America was viewed, especially, and but also the fashion and the music and stuff that came out of the 80s was really interesting. The kind of digital shift. From the 70s to the 80s, especially in terms of like film and music and media. It all became digital all of a sudden in this new way. And I think that's interesting.
My favourite's the 50s and the 60s culturally, particularly slick back hair and women's fashion, dresses.
Yeah.
And I like all the history that happened, not just counterculture, but also about nuclear Armageddon.
Yeah.
And the surreptitious scientific studies on UFOs and aliens by the government in Area 51.
Yeah.
And also about JFK. And I also loved the music too.
Yeah.
From that period. Elvis Presley, for example.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was such an interesting time for music because, again, it was a technological shift where it was easier to record stuff. And so suddenly the world was listening to music in a way that they hadn't been able to before. And so that Elvis was kind of one of the first people to get properly hugely famous.
Yes, it was.
Anyway, shall we get back to the episode?
Yes, please.
This is great. I love talking to you.
I love talking to you too.
All right. After Lewis Jr.'s time in the Army, he returned to America and moved to Washington, D.C. to oversee global counterespionage and counterterrorism operations. He eventually served at the Office of the National Counterintelligence Executive and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence before moving to the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence at the Pentagon in 2008. The code number for his office was 3C503A on the third floor C Ring 5th Corridor Alpha Suite. At this point, he didn't believe in UFOs and aliens.
But that would change when Luis Elizondo began working with the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program in 2009. That's 17 years ago. At the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, they kept files on UFOs from Project Sign, Project Grudge, and Project Blue Book, and Luis Elizondo would be immersed in these files for years, committing them to memory and learning all he could. One file that he was particularly fascinated with was the Nimitz incident. On November the 14th, 2004, a UAP was sighted, an unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP for short, was sighted by an FA-18 Super Hornet jet 160 kilometers southwest of San Diego. It was caught on the forward-looking infrared radar systems attached to the plane. An approximate number of disturbances coming from the ocean lead to unrecognizable craft emerging from the water. One of the pilots of the planes, David Fravor, described them as the tic-tac-shaped capsules, 14 meters long with no visible engine propulsion systems, and no wings. They also didn't seem to obey the laws of physics, flying faster than should be possible and moving in directions unobtainable by even the most state-of-the-art machines. Was there something you were going to say, astronaut, but I disrupted you reading this paragraph?
Oh, I was just going to say maybe some of the listeners at home don't know the difference or the change that happened between UFO and UAP. And maybe that would be worth explaining.
Yes, I'll explain that. They're changing it from UFOs to AFP.
UAP.
That's right, UAP. Unidentified aerial phenomena.
Do you know why they changed from unidentified flying object to unidentified... What is it?
Unidentified aerial phenomena.
Yes. Do you know why they shifted from UFO to UAP?
It could be because flying objects, if for certainty they're unknown what the flying objects are, but we somehow ascertained for a fact that they're crafts of some sort, unknown whether they're from space or they're newly designed and engineered crafts tested out by the Air Force.
Right. That makes sense.
Because aerial is something planes have.
Yes, and I guess it is to be more specific about, because I guess an unidentified flying object could be a rock that's been thrown.
Yeah.
But an aerial phenomena feels a little bit more pointed towards like crafts, I suppose.
That are flying around in the stars at night, or even blue sky, or even through clouds.
Yes.
Sending out signals.
Yeah. All right. Through their extensive research on UAP encounters, like the Nimitz incident, Lewis and his team were able to identify a series of observables, scientific characteristics of UAPs that meant they were likely to be the result of alien and not human technologies. These observables were...
anti-gravity, where the aircraft is able to overcome the gravitational field of whichever planet it is travelling on or around.
Transmedium travel. The aircraft can fly between space, air, and water, which no human-made aircraft is yet able to do.
Hypersonic velocity. The aircraft reaches speeds greater than
5 times.
5 times the speed of sound.
Could you say that again?
And 5 times the speed of...
Go from there.
Hypersonic velocity. The aircraft reaches speeds greater than 5 times the speed of sound.
Low observability. The aircraft has a way of distorting its visibility, making it difficult to capture clearly on film.
Instantaneous acceleration. The aircraft can reach enormous speed with impossible expeditiousness.
With the help of Harold Hal Puthoff, a renowned physicist and engineer who was often the chief scientist on top-secret government projects, Lewis developed the theory that the observables were the result of one particular alien technological breakthrough: the bubble. These UAPs were somehow able to create a bubble around their aircrafts which could warp space and time, allowing the crafts to move and behave in inconceivable ways.
The following passages are taken directly from Louis Elizondo's book, Imminent. He put it better than we ever could. The words on the pages are supposed to be meticulously copied from typewritten documents of the Project Blue Book files, which are currently being secluded in the cubicles of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program.
March 1952. 2 fiery discs zigzagged low over uranium mines in the Belgian Congo, where much of the raw material for the US's first atomic bombs was extracted. At one point, the UFO stopped over an open part of the mine as if to peer into or perhaps map it. They zigzagged away. A fighter plane gave chase but couldn't keep up with the craft's erratic changes in elevation. Finally, the UFO left the human pilot in the dust, racing towards Lake Tanganyika, the second deepest freshwater lake in the world, at a speed close to the speed of sound. The pilots surmised that the objects had to be robotic because no human pilot would have been able to survive the G-forces of a craft moving in such a way, quickly, erratically, and going from a lulling standstill to an impossible rate of speed of seconds. UFO activity around uranium mines and large bodies of water continues to this day.
July of 1952. Harry S. Truman was President of the United States. Multiple UFO-resembling lights penetrated downtown D.C. and buzzed the White House and the capital city over 2 consecutive weekends. There were hundreds of eyewitnesses, and many local newspapers put the story on their cover. The strange objects did what no known aircraft then or since can do. They soundlessly parked themselves in the air, then zipped away at incredible speeds when Air Force pilots pursued them. The objects abruptly changed direction and disappeared. In some cases, the lights split in two, each piece going in a different direction. One pilot shot at them, later justifying his action as a last-ditch measure because he knew his state-of-the-art fighter aircraft had no hope of overtaking them. Interestingly, I heard reports that when the pilot shot at one of the objects, a piece of one aircraft fell to the ground and was recovered. But after thorough investigation, officials chalked up the DC incident to flocks of birds.
October 1954. Fans at a soccer game in Florence, Italy spied a smooth, white, cigar or egg-shaped vehicle over a stadium. Same deal. No obvious wings. The game stopped while onlookers watched as the object shot around the sky. Are we supposed to believe 10,000 rabid soccer fans hallucinated the whole episode? When witnesses described these sightings, they expressed shock because nothing in their experience of watching conventional aircraft matches what they've just seen. It is often said that UFOs defy physics. I don't agree with that. I think UFOs defy our current understanding of physics. The challenge is reconciling that outwardly they do not possess any of the same characteristics we use to describe an aircraft. No wings, no control surfaces, no obvious forms of propulsion, no rivets in the aircraft's skin, no cockpits. They simply do not resemble the planes and helicopters we're used to seeing overhead. Instead, they appear as disembodied lights, variously described as a disc, a triangle, a cigar, a boomerang, etc. The Air Force had studied UFOs in 1948 and 1949 under the auspices of 2-year-old studies known as Project Sign and Project Grudge. Sign's findings were inconclusive but open to the possibility of extraterrestrial origins for the craft. Grudge swiftly swept in and debunked the phenomena as the result of natural causes. Now, as we embarked on the Cold War in the 1950s, the US government became overwhelmed by civilian reports of flying saucers like the one Lonnie Zamora saw. Investigating the backlog of cases threatened to be a massive drain on manpower and technological resources, at a time when the US felt compelled to keep its eyes fixed on the Soviet Union. Solution? We palmed the UFO problem off on Project Blue Book. In the 1990s, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, ex-KGB leaders informed the world of a cigar or rod-shaped UFO interacting with several MiG fighter pilots, allegedly even obtaining gun camera footage of one.
March 1966. Neighborhoods in Michigan were terrorized over several days by strange craft that dove, hovered, climbed, and disappeared, only to reappear. One of these objects briefly landed in a nearby swamp. When a farmer and his son went to investigate, they observed a pyramidal object that was wingless, jetless, propellerless. How could it fly? At the insistence of a leading Michigan congressman named Gerald Ford, Dr. J. Allen Hynek's Project Blue Book reviewed the matter thoroughly and unfortunately announced that the witnesses had seen swamp gas.
A report by Australia's Department of Defence in the 1970s summed up the Blue Book strategy as follows. By erecting the facade of ridicule, the US allay public alarm, reduce the possibility of the Soviets taking advantage of UFO mass sightings for either psychological or actual warfare purposes, and act as a cover for the real US program of developing vehicles that emulate UFO performances. Australia is one of the Five Eyes intelligence partners, that is, 5 nations, including the United Kingdom, Canada, New Zealand, and the United States, that have a long history of sharing intelligence cooperatively. We can rely on their frank assessment of the American program.
Bottom line, Professor J. Allen Hynek wanted to do real science. The Air Force wanted him to debunk UFOs, silence witnesses, and beat the truth back into the shadows. To his credit, Professor Dr. J. Allen Hynek later regretted the role he played in suppressing evidence under the aegis of the US Air Force. The whole time we lied to ourselves and basked in the glow of our presumed dominance in the field of nuclear energy, while far more intelligent life observed and interfered, though it is not common knowledge among civilians. UFOs have trifled with nuclear weapons all over the world, bringing the global superpowers close to war. There are many events I am not legally able to speak about, legitimately able to speak about, but there are some I can.
Accumulator, just quickly. That is a huge thing to claim, that UFOs have been behind a huge amount of the confusion and interpersonal or international conflicts, especially around nuclear threat.
And UFOs, who apparently were part of the nuclear threat, were, I don't know, corrupting the nuclear threat or just being around but not necessarily entailed to nuclear Armageddon from the 1950s and 60s.
Yeah. It's also, I think, really interesting the tactic that they speak about in these quotes about ridicule and making it seem silly, making the idea of UFO interaction silly, to kind of delegitimize those experiences that people are having.
Illegitimizing.
Yes, to make it seem crazy, I think is really interesting. Because,
yes, it is.
Because that's such a common kind of dialogue that happens is, no, it's you didn't see UFOs. You're mad. Like, that's silly.
Yes.
So I think that's a really interesting propaganda tactic, potentially, if this is true, what is being claimed is true, that the idea that only crazy people see aliens is a government tactic to make it seem less legitimate.
Yes.
Yeah. In 2017, after becoming disillusioned with the government's suppressive methods, Lewis resigned, citing excessive secrecy and internal opposition as the reason. In short, he felt that being part of an organisation that was hiding such important information from its own citizens was morally wrong. He knew that to stay in the job would prevent him from ever changing that fact. Lewis knew he could do more good outside of the Pentagon than within. After speaking with his wife and daughters, he made the decision to leave. But Lewis would need one thing before he exited the Pentagon for good: evidence. He was determined to bring about disclosure through legal means, so began hunting for unclassified UAP footage that would support his argument. He settled on 3 low-quality videos, one of which was the fighter jet footage from 2004, which were all approved for distribution by the Pentagon. Sources claim that this was an error. On the 4th of October 2017, Luis Elizondo officially resigned from his position at the Pentagon on his own terms.
The next chapter of his journey was a story of major struggle as he searched for work, as the government had been dragging his name through the mud, stuffing falsified information about his investigations into UAP activity, down the throats of the American public. Because of these false rumors, it precipitated considerable difficulties for Luis Elizondo to find better work that matched his skill set and talents. But Luis Elizondo persisted, just as his father had taught him. He was determined to find a way to enlighten the American public and the entire world about the existence of UAPs. He found an ally in former CIA officer Jim Zemivan, who suggested that Luis Elizondo engage with the media in order to spread the truth far and wide. Jim Zemivan arranged a meeting for Luis Elizondo with an open-minded investigative journalist named Leslie Keane, who had already written a book about UAP encounters with the military. Luis Elizondo was nervous about this. His military and government training had instilled in him that it was imperative he never speak to the press. He wanted to protect not only himself but the people he loved and cared about the most, like his family and his former colleagues.
Before he went on the record with Leslie, he made up some rules for himself. He would not reveal any information that was classified, and he would not name anyone that wasn't already a public figure. Details from his interview with Leslie were eventually included in a New York Times article called Glowing Auras and Black Money, the Pentagon's Mysterious UFO Program, co-authored with Ralph Blumenthal and Helen Copper. The article revealed the existence of the AATIP and delved into the hidden history of the program, complete with screenshots of the declassified UAP videos. The Pentagon is quoted in the article insisting that the program was shut down in 2012, but Lewis countered that it continues to this day with private funding and that he quit his position so that he could continue his research into UAPs without being weighed down by secrecy and lies. Luckily, he had found a way to do just that.
One public figure that played a significant role in this chapter of Luis Elizondo's journey was the musician Tom DeLonge, the guitarist and vocalist of pop-punk band Blink-182. Tom DeLonge, a UAP enthusiast, had established the organization To the Stars Academy, which focused on the discovery and distribution of UAP phenomena and had approached Luis Elizondo to collaborate. Now that Luis Elizondo was a free agent, he couldn't pass up the opportunity to access such a huge platform to potentially transmit his ideas to a wider audience. In collaboration with To the Stars Academy, he created the television program Unidentified, Inside America's UFO Investigation, which was produced by Tom DeLonge for the History Channel. It ran for 2 seasons and caused quite a lot of controversy.
Have you ever seen it, Accumulator?
I've been watching it.
How
I've
is
got
it?
the DVD at home.
Is it good?
Yes. Spectacular.
Oh, fantastic. Sorry. Keep going.
Luis Elizondo's name was dragged through the mud yet again by media organizations and the government. Luis Elizondo claimed this was all part of a smear campaign to create a lack of confidence in his findings. The pressure led to Tom DeLonge cutting ties with Luis Elizondo and cancelling Unidentified. At this point, Luis Elizondo and his family were living out of an RV, having had to sell their home. Things were looking dire, yet Luis Elizondo never gave up.
He kept fighting the good fight, desperate for the American public to know even a percentage of what he knew. He spoke openly about aliens and UAPs in his frequent appearances in the media, including an interview with GQ magazine and a CBS News segment in 2021. At the same time, behind the scenes, he began to write about all the knowledge he had accumulated. Across his career, and in 2024 published Imminent, Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs. It debuted at number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list, which just goes to show that Lewis was right about the public's hunger for the truth about extraterrestrial life. To us here at Starlight Network, Luis Elizondo is a hero for telling the absolute truth to the public about the existence of UAPs and aliens from outer space. It has been our great honour to help Luis Elizondo educate our listeners about what the government has tried to hide for entirely too many years.
Before we wrap up this episode, I want to share a message that has beamed down from the newest member of our team here at Starlight Network. Her name is Starlight, and she is a satellite with AI verbal communication and that keeps watch of the Earth, galaxy, and multiverse for breaking news. Her message to us reads, "Good news, fellow fans of Luis Elizondo, space government conspiracies, and every category related to these subjects. On my latest orbit of planet Earth, I observed that Luis Elizondo has written a second book, Reckoning, the Unspoken Truth About UFOs and the Urgency of Now, that he plans to release in August of 2026.
Whoa! Welcome, Starlight. What a scoop.
Thank you, Starlight.
Thank you for tuning in, everyone. This was a really great episode to record. We usually have to do it with one microphone kind of sharing, but in this new studio, we get to kind of sit next to each other with two microphones, and it feels a little more organic, doesn't it, Accumulator?
It sure does.
Which
Astronaut.
It feels less staged, I suppose. We can have conversations. We just wanted to say thank you for the people that have been listening in. This is our 5th episode. We've been doing this for a little while now. We're getting better. We're always improving, I think.
That's right.
And just thought Accumulator might give you a little taste of what the next episode is.
It's going to be about what was called by Ronald Reagan the Strategic Defense Initiative, nicknamed the Star Wars Program. It's a very twisted plan, master plan developed by President Ronald Reagan about using lasers as weapons on satellites and anti-satellite weaponry with lasers and telescopic sighting used to strike down ballistic missiles launched by the Soviets, who are posing nuclear threats.
It sounds like it's proper sci-fi stuff, isn't it?
They're bringing science fiction to life.
Yeah.
Science fiction movies and shows which are about ballistic weaponry, nuclear Armageddon, and it was after the time Star Wars first came out, the very first Star Wars movie.
Yeah. So this isn't about that Star Wars. This is about Reagan's Star Wars.
Yes, using the similar but different lasers compared to the lasers used in Star Wars.
Yeah. Great. Well, can't wait for that one.
That's right. And how the government, that's the United States government, have been spending billions and billions upon billions of dollars on research, engineering, and development to get this program running.
Still?
It stopped.
But I'm sure
there's still some surreptitious research and development on the go. We've just never been informed.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure it's turned into different sorts of research over the years.
Yes.
There's no one more paranoid than an American president. All right, Accumulator, that might be all the time we've got.
Yes.
Shall we sign off?
Yes, please.
Thank you for another wonderful session.
Thank you too for this session as well, Astronaut.
We hope you enjoyed your time with us today and that you will join us again for another episode of
Starlight Network! One night as a very little boy, I looked at my window beside my bed, seeing something I'd never seen before. A big bright light speeding through the sky like a weird satellite going out of complete control. The time I thought what I really saw was a meteor crashing to Earth. Turns out that the big bright light, as a matter of fact, a shiny clear meringue. Starlight starlight, not that I imagine a starlight shooting through the sky, a starlight. After my experience, I intend to tell that story to you. Starlight Network.